All right, let's start this party. Can you even?
I can't. I cannot even that we're here. And our book babes isn't just like an idea, we're a podcast.
It's like
And
for
we're a
real.
YouTube channel.
Yes. All the things. We're here to party. So, Book Babes Club. Tell me all the things because I personally love seeing your heart and seeing your dreams and your vision come to reality with this. So just, I guess, kind of just tell me how you're feeling so that we can share with our audience how this came about and really what it's turned into and the vision that we have for it.
All right, let's start off just the idea of a book club. So I grew up in a little town in Minnesota, and I remember we would go into a marketplace that was half library and half like little coffee shop. And there was a group of ladies that met every single Wednesday, and they would always just be laughing and chatting. And some days they'd be like, two of them would be like a little heated. But there was just like, it was just such a cool like atmosphere. And then in school, we had like, your little elementary school book clubs. And I just loved reading. Reading is so, it just has a special place in my heart. And so got older. Reading is hard as a mom. And because we have built such an awesome community of other women that love reading, especially mindset driven books, you had posted a question that like, if we did want to do a book club, who would be interested? And it like spoke to my heart. I was like, she knows this. She gets it. We need this. And I wasn't expecting you to hit me up on my help. Quite like, because I was just like, I'll help with anything you need. And well, we did a little more than just help.
Here we are, right? Yeah, it totally all kind of like fell into fate, right? Like it all was the perfect, I don't want to say storm because it wasn't a storm, but it was like the perfect rain to create this beautiful rainbow, right? Yeah. Like at least I hope it's going to be one hell of a rainbow. We're going to shine bright.
It just literally like avalanche from one thing into another, because it was really just the idea of like a little bit of accountability to read some of these books. And then that community got really big really fast. And we're like, more people need this message.
Absolutely.
We could do something with this message. But
well,
then, so the start of the book.
I think especially now too, though, with it being 2020, community is what everybody wants, right? Like who isn't missing time and interaction with other humans? So I think it was like even more meant to be in that aspect.
Well, especially the virtual aspect, because that's just so much of the direction that 2020 has spurred us into. And it might be a long time before we can, really have those big group settings in a library where you can sit around in a circle. And I just think that it's cool that we're not going to miss out on that. And we're not going to let others miss out on that. And we're going to bring it to them however we need to.
Absolutely.
Speaking of bringing it to, so you chose this month's book and you chose The Happiness Project. What made you choose this book? Because I think that there's a little bit to it.
Yeah, so actually it kind of all started with our boot camp where we were challenged to read 10 pages of a book a day. And this is something that I used to do like when I first started on my health and fitness journey. And then, mom life, 3 kids through the chaos. And I let the excuse of busy, well, I'm busy, I can't sit down and read, kind of take over. And I was still doing like mindset growth through audiobooks, through podcasts, through YouTube, like through trainings, all of those things. So I was still doing it. But then when we got hit with this challenge of actually sit down and read 10 pages, and I got back to that and I was like, dang, I've missed holding a book. A book makes me happy. And so as I'm going through my own happiness journey of like really figuring out who I am, where I'm going, like what are things that are going to bring me joy, I realize reading is definitely one of those things. It always has been. And I need to make it a priority, even if I'm busy, even if busy is my excuse to like actually read a book. And so I had finished one book, and I just kind of put in my stories like, hey, here is my bookshelf, like check out all my books, which one should I read? And so one of my good friends, Renee, actually was like, Happiness Project, hands down. And the funny thing is, I've read this book before. I read this book 5 years ago. It was like one of the first few books that I read when I started my own health and fitness journey, was this book. And I honestly, looking back, I don't ever remember anything that was said then, right? Like, so I have my copy, and my copy itself, I write in my books. So as I'm reading it now, I can see what I highlighted then. I can see what spoke to me then. And I realize the little things that I took away from this book that I applied as I'm going through and reading it now. But she recommended it, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, that's a good one. I have it already. We're just going to read it. I didn't even get through the very first chapter, which is called like Getting Started. And I was like, oh, wait,
Yep.
I can't do this by myself, right? Like, this year has been so hard for everyone. And as I read that first chapter, I was like, oh my gosh, all of my friends need this. Like, this isn't just, I can't just keep this to myself. And I took that picture of one little part of the book, and I was like, okay, who wants to do this? And when you were like, yeah, I want to help any way that I can, let me just admit and say, I'm that person. I'm not good at asking for help. I'm not good at taking help. And so I was like, okay, it's here. She said, just do it. And then when I reached out and it just blossomed into this beautiful thing, I was like, okay, it was God, it was fate. Like, we're here for a reason. It was this book for a reason. I'm on my own rediscovering happiness journey for a reason. And so that's kind of how the Happiness Project landed into our lap, which created this Book Babes Club, which I'm super freaking pumped for.
I am so pumped for it. And I also think that you couldn't have picked a better book for 2020, because I think that if there was a year that has really made us like reevaluate what we have in life, what our normal is. And I think that at some point we need to just embrace reality that nothing will probably ever go back to 2019 normal. And so, but the beautiful thing with that is we get to kind of create a new normal and decide what we want to take away and what we want to imply for going forward. And the best thing that I found with this book is she really lies out like every chapter is a month of the year and like her quest through it. And so it was just like the perfect divine timing of going into a whole new year where, you know, you're not promised that, you know, the ball is going to drop and 2021 is going to be the magic cure all for whatever 2020 was. But I just think that us going through this book is like opening the opportunity of like, what do we want this next year to look like? And at the end of the day, it really is within us and within your own choices and your own decisions that you're going to find that. And it's not going to be out there on some else. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I love that you say that, because I think like that's the most powerful thing, right? So we've been living our life up against social media. That's what we see constantly is everybody else's social media, and it's so easy to compare. It's so easy to consume everybody else. But when you're trapped in your house and, you know, you're on lockdown or you can't go anywhere, like all these extreme rules that we've kind of had to learn to embrace, you have to learn how to sit with yourself, which I think is really freaking hard. Like learning to sit with yourself, like you said, evaluating where your life is and where your priorities are, and really understanding that. It's kind of, I don't know about anybody else, but it was kind of like a gut punch to me, like, holy crap, right? Like I don't even know what to do with this, because I've made myself be so busy trying to keep up and do all these things that I realized, okay, well, here I am in this weird year where nothing is going the way I have planned. So now I have to kind of rediscover who I am. And I love in this happiness project how it is so individual, right? Like, so your happiness project is not going to be like mine or like the next person's. And I think that that's the really cool part, is it's taking what 2020 gave us and saying, all right, like there was your clean slate. There was like the big red flags, everything that you didn't like. You got to learn a whole lot about yourself. And now you get to decide how you're going to grow. You get to decide where you're going to go. But it starts by you rediscovering you. And that's super powerful.
And I think that you definitely hit the nail on the head with everyone's looks so different. And I think that's something that even kind of has been fun within the group, because they'll touch on things, like marriage or parenting. And we have a whole community of women from all walks of life. Some of them aren't moms. Some of them are moms of older kids. Some of them are very new moms. Some of them are in relationships, single, married long time. Some are divorced. And everyone has such different takeaways already in that, but we're all like bonding and like growing within that. And I think that that's just kind of been the power of realizing that you can do your own journey simultaneously with other people without it being like a competition. It's not like, oh, she learned this, but I can't apply that. It's definitely like a walk together. And it's just been refreshing.
Absolutely. So with Book Babes, like this club obviously is not an exclusive club. It's for anybody who just wants to grow, who wants to learn, who wants to power up and walk together, like you said, with other like-minded people, with other humans who want to grow as well. And I think that's what I'm most excited for about this club, about Book Babes. Kind of the platform that we have is obviously the YouTube videos, obviously this podcast. We have our private Facebook group where we get to go through with those people as we're reading the book and kind of get their takeaways and their feedback. And so obviously our vision and our heart is going into this, and I'm curious, what do you want to come from this? What do you want our listeners or our viewers to really gain and grow in their own journey as we lean in together and walk together?
I think that maybe not so much in coming into 2020, but I think before there's been such a stigma of like personal development and, oh, like you have to have something wrong with you in order to grow, or you have to have a life crisis in order to reevaluate your life. And I think that I just want to like normalize the idea of like, you can pick the book up and imply one thing, and you're just simply just trying to be the better person than you woke up yesterday. That's not saying that you want to wake up tomorrow to be the perfect version of you. I just think that if every person wanted to just wake up and be that little bit better than they were the day before, just imagine the compound effect that that would have. And I think that by us doing this book and linking arms with other women and saying, hey, let's do this together, because everything's better together. Nobody wants to do things alone. And so when you are like almost have that accountability of like, oh, they're on chapter 2, I should really pick up the book and read. Or, she says that this chapter is about parenting. I can't wait to read that chapter. Or if you're listening to the podcast, like maybe you've never picked up a book and you're like, wow, like I would love to listen to their takeaways as I'm reading this book too. And it's going to be great for people if they're just now tuning in. They can do this whole podcast with us. They can pick up the book and go back to, that book or that chapter and redo it. And it's like we're always going to be there at whatever step they are with their first book, second book, whatever chapter with them. And I think that's what I am so excited and just what I want other people to take away from this.
Okay, I have goosebumps because that right there speaks to my heart. And I think another powerful thing that I really love about what we're doing is that no two people are the same, right? And that's one thing that I've definitely learned in the last 5 years is that I think differently than a lot of people. And so what I'm super excited about is not only learning my own takeaways from this book, but learning other people's takeaways, learning how they think and what they're kind of taking in and how they're breaking things down. Because I think sometimes something can be said one way, but in order for us to understand it, it sometimes takes hearing it a different way. And so being able to see that from different lenses and different views and just in other voices, I think that right there, that's a super super powerful piece of growth and of really discovering your own thoughts and how you think and process and just kind of take on life.
Well, I think that's like even just between like, just imagine like you and I, this is, your second time reading it. You read it 5 years ago. And I've only been doing this journey for maybe, I started like off and on 2018. Otherwise, since March of 2020 is really when I was like, let's go. I want to be a better Hannah. And so I love just our comparisons alone. I love hearing what you take away the second time, because I think that's just as powerful of like, and when you're going back to like, oh, this is why I do this because of when I read this book 5 years ago. Like just it just like gives me goosebumps to the idea of like think about it in 5 years of like what book we're gonna have read that has gonna like been implied in our life. It's just I just can't wait.
Obviously, we can geek out over this for forever, but I think this is the perfect intro to just kind of what we have in store for you, the listener, the viewer, in just kind of where we're going. So I don't know, Hannah, do you have anything else to add before we end this episode?
I think just like the disclaimer of this doesn't matter like where you are in this like journey or what chapter you're on, like either follow along, catch up when you can, but just like do something, 1 page a day, 1 paragraph a day, set a timer, but just like being intentional, because I do think that being intentional with the reading is what can like really be the gateway to change life. So being intentional with it, that's what I want people to take away.
And on that note, please know that Hannah and I are not professionals. We are just two very passionate mamas. Obviously, we love reading, we love growth, and we're just here kind of as your friend, sitting here chatting with you, learning together.
So grab a cup of coffee, grab whatever you're drinking, some water, and definitely listen up because we got some fun chapters coming up.
Let's do the damn thing.